Good morning. It has been a very long time. I think my last video was in March, and it's currently August 7th, Thursday. It's almost noon, it's 11:54. I haven't posted in a long time, and in fact, just social media in general, I haven't posted a lot. Big part of that reason is because I have burnout. The last episode I posted of From Ashes was in November, I believe. Maybe November or December. So I haven't posted in a long time. In August of 2024, which is last year, I had decided to. I'm sorry, I'm a little congested, so I may pause because congestion is sometimes difficult to talk, like right now. Last year, August, I decided to redo my webtoon. I had started posting on October 2023, but I wanted to redo it. And then August came and I redid it and I uploaded, I made some episodes ahead of time. But around that time, I got a job. So a lot of my time went to the job. So I couldn't keep up with posting as much. Kind of stopped posting around November. And then a couple of months passed, and probably like February, I wasn't really happy with the episodes I posted, which is a problem I have where like I view my past work and I'm like, I could do better. And that starts the cycle of wanting to redo it and wanting to always improve, so you never actually show your story, which I think a lot of like webcomic creators can relate to, because webcomics take a long time. I said, okay, let me just rewrite the script and see how it goes, see if I like the story better. And I ended up liking how I rewrote the script again. So I plan to redo the webtoon again, webcomic. But I started this idea back in like, I think either March or April during the springtime, and I'm still not done with the prologue. And I think a big part of that reason is just a webcomic is a lot of work, like especially if you want to post weekly. And one of my biggest gripes with webtoons and webcomics is when there's not a lot happening in an episode. I think a lot of webtoon creators say like 60 panels is like a standard for a episode, but even with 60 panels, not much can happen. That's like my biggest like gripe with when I read an episode where like nothing happens. So I always tried to make sure my episodes had something important happening or like something exciting. But that always meant going over 60 panels and hitting 80, 90 panels, which is a lot. Let's say I could do 5 panels in a day. It would take 12 days to do 60 panels. And that's not accounting for the fact that some panels may take longer than other panels, especially if you have like one nice panel. So I started experiencing burnout from making these episodes. I can't even say episodes because I'm only on the prologue. And this burnout has been happening for months, if not years. My first webtoon, Hacker Wolf, I started publishing towards the end of 2018, I believe. And even that, I experienced burnout. It was just very difficult to upload an episode a week, especially since if you want to upload 60 panels in an episode, that's very hard to do. I like drawing, but I also like spending time on my drawing, and it's kind of hard to do that in a webcomic without like spending like an entire month on one episode, which is not feasible, especially if you want the story to move on, which is the other reason I've been experiencing burnout, is my story was not moving on. For my story episode, actually, let me look it up. I'm going to look at where my inciting incident was going to occur. Let's see. Like episode 10 and 11 are kind of where my inciting incident is. And if you upload the first 3 episodes when you first introduce your webcomic, that's, for me, it's a prologue 1 and 2, so that's means 8 weeks later is when the inciting incident happens. That's 2 months, and that's a long time for me, which is another reason for my burnout, is the story was not moving fast enough for me. And yes, I can take out parts, make the story go faster, but it also felt like I was removing a lot of important details or things about the characters, like their ideals, morals. It just felt like I was rushing their stories personally. And a big part of From Ashes is characters, not only just Anya and Kaylin, but the other characters and what they believe in. So it felt like I was removing a lot of that from the story if I were to make those episodes shorter and make the story go faster, just so the inciting incident happens sooner. The story was not moving fast enough for me. I like making the episodes, but I also like my story moving on. It started happening where I would spend more time writing the scripts than working on the episodes. Actually, I have episode 20, I think like 22 or 23 written. They're not edited, but I started writing, and I started enjoying that process more than actually creating the episodes. It got me thinking maybe From Ashes shouldn't be a webcomic, because with a webcomic it has to be a little more fast paced, and I'm not saying you can't, you can go into more depth with the characters, especially not just the main characters, like the side characters. You can go into more depth, explore different avenues, discuss topics, important topics in From Ashes. You could do that in a webcomic, but I feel like if you want your story to move along a little faster, it can feel boring in a webcomic, especially if it's not moving the story along in an episode, which is what I mentioned before. I don't like an episode where the story doesn't move on, or it kind of just gets stuck because you have to wait another week for the next episode. And From Ashes, in my head, and what I wrote, is going to be kind of a longer story. Like, there's still a lot, even after that inciting incident, before the end of Act 1 of Season 1, a lot happens, and that would take like 10 episodes, 20 episodes. So I could be at like episode 40, and that's the end of Act 1 of Season 1, which is a long season, and From Ashes is a long story. So I started thinking maybe a webcomic is not the best way to show From Ashes, especially if I want to be a little more detailed and explore different themes, because it will take me 100 episodes to finish one season, probably more than 100 episodes. If season 1 act 1 is taking 40 episodes, I'm gonna hit above 100 by the end of the season, and that 2 years. If I posted every week, the 2 weeks in a year, if I posted every week, that's 2 years almost, just to end the season. That's a long time. Personally, I want the story to move on. I want to get to the different stages in the story. Every iteration of From Ashes, I haven't been able to pass the inciting incident. I haven't even been able to get to the inciting incident in every iteration I've ever made of From Ashes. When I draw it, I've been questioning whether I should write From Ashes as a book, as a novel, rather than a webcomic. Now, I haven't finalized my decision yet. What I plan to do is, I have this other idea for a story that takes place in the world of From Ashes. It just takes place before the events. It's like a prequel. Well, I have multiple ideas, but this one idea was the first, and something I have a little more developed than the other ones, that I would try writing that story, see how it goes, write the first draft, see how I like it, edit it a bit. If I end up really liking it, I can try traditionally publishing it. We'll see. That's still a long way to go, but first I have to actually write the book and do an outline before writing the book. I think I'm just going to take a break from Ashes for a little bit, and I don't mean like I'm never going to draw the characters again. I'm still going to draw Anya and Kaylin. I'm going to draw all the other characters, just for fun mainly, and I'm gonna draw like all the magical creatures that I plan to introduce in From Ashes and into the world of Arcadia, which is what From Ashes takes place in. That's what the world is called. So I'm still gonna do all that, but it's just gonna be a little more chill. I'm gonna take a little bit break of From Ashes. I just don't want to rush the story, and it just felt like I was rushing when I was making the webcomic. I want to take my time, and another reason I kind of want to take a break is because I have other hobbies that I would love to do. I would like to do my other hobbies like crocheting. I would like to do some paintings traditionally. I've been doing this fun art for about a week, and I'm still on the line art. That's because I keep redoing the pose. I think this break will be good. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. I hope all that made sense. I didn't have a script or anything. It just came out of my head, so I hope it all made sense. My plans for the next couple of weeks is to plan out what I'm calling Project Datura. This is what the flower looks like. It's really pretty. We'll see how it goes. I'll see how I feel after writing the first draft. I've always wanted to write a book. When I was younger, I was really into reading, and I still love creating stories. I'm creating From Ashes. And I think if I do enjoy the process, I will eventually may eventually if I decide to actually switch from ashes from webcomic to novel, write it as a not trilogy or quadrilogy. I haven't decided if From Ashes is going to be 4 parts or 3 parts. Trilogy just sounds nice, but I may transition From Ashes into a novel format. Even if I decide to do that, I still have other like books I have in mind before I work on From Ashes. Like I said, I have other stories. From Ashes will be my magnum opus, but I need to practice writing before I do that. My main story. This is all a long tangent to say I have creative burnout. I'm gonna take a break from creating From Ashes the webcomic to write a novel that takes place before From Ashes, but is still in the world of From Ashes in Arcadia. But I'm still gonna draw the characters of From Ashes for fun. I'm going to probably, it's currently 12:14. I'm gonna go on the walking pad a little bit to just get some steps in. Something I've been trying to do is if I don't go out, I should at least walk on the walking pad to get to 5,000 steps is my goal. If I go past 5,000, great, because right now my average steps are like 2,000 a day. I've done 1372 today, but I think a lot of that was just hand waving. Probably. Ended up going over 4,000 steps, so I'll definitely get 700 steps to meet my 5,000 goal for the day. So it's currently 1 o'clock. I think, well, 1:30. I think I'm going to work on planning for Project Datura a little bit. I think this is the one I use for planning From Ashes. I think I'm just going to use this for now. I've had this thought for a while too for Project Datura, like the story. I've had it for a couple of months, so I do have some info in there. I like to write it on like paper first before I like transfer it to the computer, and then I can figure out the timeline and when everything occurs like in more detail, because I have the basic plot in my head and in that notebook, but just like the details of like how do you get to this plot to this plot. Like I know what has to happen, I just don't know like how each plot will like lead to the other, so I need to figure that out. And I need to figure out a character's name. See, for Anya, it was very easy. When I was like looking up names that mean fire, that one stood out, and I just felt like it fit the main character I was thinking in my head. Actually, Kaylin's name was Ryan at first, and then my my friend's nephew is also called Ryan. And then I was like, I'm gonna change it. So I'm gonna put this walking pad away and then put my desk back at sitting height, because I don't think I want to stand while I'm writing. I mean, I could, it'd be good for me, but I think I want to sit. So when I think of a name for a character, sometimes it just comes to me. Other times, most of the time, really, I try to pick a name that invokes feeling with the character or has a meaningful meaning. Most characters, apart from like a couple, they're just old-fashioned names that I like. Google a name that means courage, like something like that. So I try to find a name that has like meaning to the character, and I'm really bad at like not putting that in my notes, like what the name means. I want the name to have meaning and invoke a feeling. Anya's name is like kind of graceful in a way, like it like kind of, it's nice to roll off the tongue. When you meet Anya, you're like, oh, that's a pleasant name, and you have your first impressions of the character, is what I'm trying to say. So that's what I try to do when I'm finding out character names. I'll like write a bunch, and then sometimes I will combine names together if I have to, if I don't find like a great name. I don't want the name to also sound modern, very modern. It's kind of daunting starting a new story, especially when you spend so long on one story, but I think it'll be good for me. I need the change to get out of this rut. You know, I spent so long working on the webcomic with multiple iterations, and then to suddenly change to a different format is kind of scary. One of the reasons I chose a webcomic format is because I would avoid that narration part of the story, not the dialogue, like when the narrator's talking, because that's what I was always scared of, is me not being good enough to explain the characters' feelings, how they look, build sceneries in a good way or like in a beautiful way. I just didn't think I would be good at that, but that is just something I have to work on, and I know this first draft will not be good in that regard. Dialogue, I think I'm okay with dialogue. Dialogue is something I like to do, which is why I like writing the scripts. Kind of scary, but I think it'll be good for me. It doesn't mean I'll never draw From Ashes again. It just means it'll be in a different format, and I can do the parts of From Ashes that I do enjoy drawing. I'm procrastinating. I'm gonna research names. I have found my name, I think. I don't really have a plan today, which is bad. So I'm gonna probably write in my bullet journal to figure out a plan. I stayed up until 1 a.m. because, as I said, I'm still doing fun art for From Ashes. I was working on a piece with Anya and Kaylin. I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday. Maybe I did. I had like 2 iterations before that, but I was just not happy. The pose just felt very like stiff. It didn't feel great. The pose didn't feel great. It didn't look right, so I decided to redo it again for the 3rd time. And I actually finished the line art yesterday, which I didn't do for the other 2 iterations of this. Yeah, so this is my final iteration, and I really like how it came out. It's very like, Kaylin has more of a playful, not playful, like sultry or seductive appearance, I guess. Kind of playful. Um, and Anya's looking at him very gracefully. I think this came out much better. It looks a little more not so stiff. I think I have to fix that muscle at the bottom because it looks a little weird right here. But I'll do that later today. But most of it is done. Like the hair is pretty much done. I might add a few more strands, like unruly, like messy strands for Anya, because she's supposed to have like curly wavy hair, but her bangs are more like on the straight side. I will show you the other iterations. So the first one was this one. This was the first one. So very similar. They have similar, like he was still shirtless. She's holding his hair. This one she's touching just a lip, and this is kind of like him waking up. And it wasn't like too bad. The pose, it was just her, I think her face, it didn't have like that like looking like very like her half closed eyes. I think that's what bothered me. So I could have like stuck with this one, but I just didn't. I ended up redoing it. And then the second one, I did the second one, but I think Kaylin's expression was not that great. I also think I was messing, his muscles were like in a weird pose and it was just difficult. His face expression wasn't that great, so I ended up redoing it, and then now we have the third one, which is much better. I like that they're looking at each other too, because I think it's more like romantic that way when they're looking at each other, so I'm happy with that. And as I said, I'll probably add more strands for Anya and then fix his muscles down here, his arm muscles, because I'm still not used to doing back muscles. Back muscles are still difficult for me because I haven't done a lot of them. So I'll probably spend some time, maybe like 30 minutes, just studying male backs. Now I'm just procrastinating. This whole vlog is just going to be me speaking in the same position. Well, I was on the bed when I spoke about my creative burnout. I'm going to start doing something instead of just, like, I'm just going to start.